How's it going, folks? This is Mike from Rebel Uncensored, and this video we're gonna talk about what's going on in the world. And we're not I'm gonna tell you about it the way I believe things are going, and from my research, not from the mainstream media, what they're telling you, because everybody knows that they're just lying. So from my research in the whole world, because this is a global thing, it's just not U.S., it's not U.S. government, it's not blah, it's a global thing. And you have three major players that's controlling everything, that's running the whole show, and that's the United States, Russia, and Israel. Those are your three cohorts right there, with Israel being that's controlling the whole situation. Everybody talks about, if you talk about the Jews or whatever, you're anti-Semitic and you're not allowed to talk about it, blah blah blah. Well, there's a reason they don't want you to talk about it, and that's the reason they label you that. It's because they don't want people to know what's going on, which a lot of people know what's going on. And why do you think that in the U.S. government, past and present, there are 35 people in just the cabinet and in the White House that are 35 different people that have Israeli and U.S. dual citizenship, and there's a slew more in the Senate. There's more in the Congress, the House of Representatives, the lower chamber. It's just, why is there that many people? First of all, I don't know why you should be allowed to be in the United States government if you're a dual Israeli U.S. citizen. So that's mind-boggling. But the two people that I focus on is Janet Yellen and Stanley Fisher. And everybody knows who they are. The reserve chair and the reserve vice chair. So those two are dual Israeli and U.S. citizens, and they're in charge of our money. And when you do a little bit of research about them, it's awful funny that Janet Yellen is married to a Jewish guy that happens to be a professor at the London School of Economics. And I'm not going to get into the London School of Economics, which is, founded by the Fabian Society. Y'all can go look that up for yourself, so I'm not going to get into that. That's maybe another video. And Janet Yellen also is an honorary professor at the London School of Economics. That's where all of your Israeli and your Jewish people that control the world, that's where they train. That's the training center in the London School of Economics. Stanley Fisher, the vice chair of the Federal Reserve, he went to the School of London Economics. Guess who he went there with? Well, he was in there with Benjamin Netanyahu. You know who he is, don't you? The guy that runs Israel. Stanley Fisher also is on the board for the largest Israeli World Bank. Imagine that. So he's got his hands in all the money, don't he? So, whenever people were saying, I've been watching this on YouTube and doing this a while, and there's a lot of people saying, about the Jewish, and it's not all the Jewish people. It's a certain sect of Jews, and you need to research that. The Talmudic Jews, those, I mean, you just got to research that and research their philosophy. Everybody's so up gung ho about Islam and the Quran. Well, why don't you look at the Talmud and research that and see what you come up with? And so I just kept doing some research and kept digging into this, and then I come up with this story about where Trump's son-in-law, which is now the White House advisor or whatever he is in the White House, he Jared Kushner, that back in March met with the Russians at a Russian bank discussing what nobody knows. But then when you keep researching in it, and let's look at Jared. Let's look at Jared. What do we want to look at? Let's look at Jared's family history. Okay, Jared Kushner, he was born in New Jersey, and his dad was a real estate developer, Charles Kushner. And but check this out. His paternal grandparents, Ray and Joseph Kushner, they were Holocaust survivors that came to the United States in 1949 from Belarus, which was then the USSR. And Kushner was raised Jewish. So, I mean, I'm just putting that out there. I mean, you get what you get from that, but and they're multi-billionaires. Their family, real estate developers. So when you start checking, it's awful funny. He's real estate. Donald Trump's real estate. He's married to Trump's daughter. They're Jewish, and all these dual Israeli American Jews in the White House. And so then you want to know, how does Russia and Donald Trump and the Jewish fit? Well, I mean, so if you there's a Jewish community center on Long Island, Manhasset Bay. And 2 decades ago, the Russian president set about consolidating power on one side of the world. And he had this project to supplant his country's existing Jewish civil society and replace it with a parallel loyal structure to him. But he wanted to do that over here on this side of the world. Okay. So, him and Donald Trump, with all the money that when the sanctions came on Russia, they were funneling all this money out and they were investing it in real estate in the United States. Donald Trump wanted to figure out how to get his hands on some of that money. So I'll just read you this thing right here. It says, 2 decades ago, as the Russian president said about consolidating power on one side of the world, he embarked on a project to supplant his country's existing Jewish civil society and replace it with the parallel structure loyal to him. On the other side of the world, the brash Manhattan developer was working to get a piece of the massive flows of capital that were fleeing the former Soviet Union in search of stable assets in the West, especially real estate, and seeking partners in New York with ties to the region. Their respective ambitions led the two men, along with Trump's future son-in-law, Jared Kushner, to build a set of close, overlapping relationships in a small world that intersects on Chabad, an international Hasidic movement most people have never heard of. So, starting in 1999, Putin enlisted 2 of his closest confidants, the oligarchs Lev Lviv and Roman Abramovich, who would come to the little community, and they became patrons of this community, this Hasidic Jewish community, and they created a federation of Jewish communities of Russia under the leadership of Chabad Rabbi Beryl Lazar, which would later become known as Putin's rabbi. So a few years later, Trump would seek out Russian projects in capital by joining forces with a partnership called Bayrak Sapir. Look them up. Led by Soviet immigrants, Tevfik Arif, Felix Sater, and Shamir Sapir. The Felix Sater guy, him and Donald Trump, they've been around a while, all the way back into Donald Trump's beginnings of him getting into the casino and the gambling business, and that's a whole nother video and story. So the company's ventures would lead to multiple lawsuits alleging fraud and criminal investigation on a condo project in Manhattan. And that's another thing. Donald Trump's estate that he had in Florida that he bought from a foreclosure auction that he paid like $41 million to it, and then he sold it to this Russian immigrant guy for like $100 million. Yeah, that's a pretty good investment, isn't it? So, but so I mean, just all you can do is research some of this stuff. I mean, you gotta look at some of the sources. You have to kind of investigate them a little bit to see if you can believe what they say. I believe that this is credible stuff because a lot of it's came out before. You just got to kind of connect the dots. All of this stuff with these, it's been out. It's been out in different interviews. It's been out, and it's just, but it's not all put together. So once you start looking into it, and you start connecting the dots, and you start following the money and connecting the people behind the money, yeah. So that's when you start seeing how all of this ties together. And everybody says, well, China, they own the United States, they all bought all the stuff up, blah blah blah. Well, that's because the Jewish and Israel, the Rothschilds, they basically own China. And just research that. I mean, even on the Chinese money is the Rothschild star in the upper right hand corner. So all you have to do is just look at it and see. So that's why China, it's not China investing in our buying our debt. It's the Jewish. That's who's controlling it all. I mean, and that's just the way I see it. I mean, just from my research, I'm just saying. I mean, whether you believe me or you don't believe me, I mean, that's But this is just from research, from connecting the dots, from looking into the people involved. I mean, and then you got Netanyahu that's not even from Israel. He's from, I don't know, over there near Poland or somewhere, and he's changed his name so he would sound more Jewish and blah, blah, blah. Just research it. All you got to do is research it. I mean, whatever. So that's this video. I just want to give you a little insight as to, I'm going to continue on these videos. I'm going to start breaking down certain segments of it. It is what it is, and now you know why. You never have nothing never goes down with the Israel, Russia, or the United States unless they want it to. That's the bottom line. So until the next time, this is Mike from Rebel Uncensored, and I'm out of here.